Democrat Joe Sestak walking 422 miles across the state to show Pennsylvanians he will walk in their shoes. The U.S. Senate candidate kicked off his campaign last week in Philadelphia, and today he's in Lancaster County. And Admiral Sestak, first of all, thank you for being with us today. You visited Martin Luther King Elementary School in Lancaster this morning. What did you share there?
Absolutely. We were celebrating our urban communities. You know, John F. Kennedy said it very well, Greg. What he said is, we neglect our cities to our peril, because to neglect our cities, we neglect America. I mean, they're so rich in their diversity. They're so rich as the engine of our economy, and they're so rich in the innovation that they bring. And so this was an emphasis upon the great different threads that run through the fabric of America, the diversity and the richness that is seen so well in our urban communities.
What have you been hearing from those that you've met so far along your walking journey across Pennsylvania?
They tell me their concerns, because each day I walk in the shoes of a different group of Pennsylvanians. I started with veterans, then I did those who were sufferers of human trafficking up in Bucks County. There's a corridor there. Small business, then women. Then I did manufacturing, seniors. And then I asked them, how do you feel about what's happening with our political leaders? And almost to a person, they say, oh, we don't trust them. And that great loss of faith, of trust in our leaders is the biggest deficit we have in America, which is why I'm actually trying to walk in the shoes of Pennsylvanians to get them to hopefully trust me, that I will do not what I say, yes, but I will do what needs to be done to take care of them. Of course I'll do what I say, but I want them to know that I will actually do it down in Washington and not do something else.
You came close to defeating Republican Pat Toomey the last time. What are you going to do differently this time in hope to gain the victory this time round?
I'm doubling down on why we came so very close. In a real sea of anger, as you remember, with the Tea Party so upset, and others, understandably, because they had lost faith in our government. I am spending even more time in our beautiful rural communities. Yes, today I did the city of Lancaster, but yesterday I did a rural event in the countryside, so around the city. And so I believe that it can't just focus, as many Democrats do, of which I am one, in the major cities. You should need to be out about the beautiful rural communities. And second, I am, of course, doubling down by this walk and by other means in the future of letting them know that I'm willing to be held accountable for what I do, not just what I say. And that, getting it across by this walk, is, I think, remembering it's about not type, not party, but we, the people.
How are you going to reach out to Republicans? You're in Lancaster County, a very strong Republican stronghold. What can you say to Republicans to kind of sway them towards Joe Sestak?
That I have great respect for many Republican leaders of our nation. President Eisenhower, who established the student loan program. President Lincoln, who established the Intercontinental Railroad. That these great Republican leaders understood the fine two tenets that form America's character. Rugged individualism, be all you can be, but it's always in alignment with a common effort, the common weal. So that when we needed interstate highway systems, President Eisenhower said, we together will invest so that small businesses can get their goods to market. And so I come from a congressional district where I was a Democrat, but it was 55% Republican, 35% Democrat. And I came to be reelected there because they knew I would listen and respect that great tenet that Republicans do so well, rugged individualism, where government doesn't unduly interfere with our freedoms of religion, press, and other speech, but also with that, explaining that great tenet of ours, like I learned in the military, where we have one another's back and we come together. Having those two tenets in alignment, I would always tell Democrats and Republicans, makes America be all it can be. And that's the message I'm carrying, both in policies and in earning their trust. That's what I stand for.
Joe, you served in the United States Navy for 31 years, and thank you, sir, for your service to our nation. The U.S. Navy has relieved a chaplain from duty, allegedly because he offered counseling on sexuality that was consistent with his Christian faith. Now, our station is a Christian radio station here in South Central Pennsylvania, and I'm talking about the case with Chaplain Wes Motter, who was detached for cause by his commander after some service members who went to him for counsel filed a complaint against him for offering counsel that they didn't agree with, but the counsel was consistent with the chaplain's faith. Now, there are numerous chaplains that are asking that he be restored to duty. What does Joe Sestak, the Navy man, think about this?
I don't know the particulars of this case, but let me say this with regard to chaplains. I loved having them on ship. But there was a fine line of demarcation upon a chaplain's duty when they were before the crew, and it was more of a public type of an event, or they were sitting around and they were to be a chaplain that was of a certain faith, but was, per the laws of our land, meant to approach it in a non-denominational way. They are required, so for example, in front of the crew, no matter what faith they are, to talk about our Almighty rather than saying the words of either Allah or to say the words Jesus. I mean, that's the way it is that because you have people of many faiths in the crew. But when it's in private counseling, that a man or a woman would go in to sit in his room where you would be of the same faith, and there's an agreement to counsel you towards of the same faith, then you can talk of our great Lord Jesus Christ and others in that kind of one-on-one. If it is a counseling, though, that is meant to be, let's just say, kind of more non-denominational because it's meant to be more of a particularly faith, sort of a particular faith counseling, then he must follow the rules of the military and our government that says he cannot bring his own personal religious beliefs into that. That's a fine line that has to be drawn by our chaplains since we are a government force and we can't have the preaching of one particular faith done except if it's an agreement to do so in a private counseling session, and that agreement has to be there.
Okay. All right.
Does that explain it to you, Greg? So
well,
I don't know what happened in this case.
Yeah, it might be a case that you might want to investigate because after
Absolutely.
all, Congress
Absolutely.
did pass language in the National Defense Authorization Act to make clear that chaplains who provide ministry from their faith tradition are protected from adverse action by command. So, yeah, the chaplain is Wes Motter, M-O-D-D-E-R.
M-O-D-D-E-R.
That is correct. And Chaplain Alliance for Religious Liberty is kind of speaking on his behalf and asking that he be restored to his duties. And it's quite an interesting case, certainly a case that our listening audience is interested and knowledgeable about. So I wanted to ask you that particular question because of your many years being in the Navy and that this chaplain was a very well-respected chaplain in the Navy. He once ministered to Navy SEALs, and he could be thrown out of the military because of these claims. So
yes, I will look this up. This is an important issue because chaplains are priceless to us out there. Look, even as a congressman, I would always go to another place of worship besides my own Catholic Mass every weekend. And when I went during the campaign, I went to over 250 other congregations than my own Catholic Mass, and I came to understand so well, sitting through so many services, the beauty, the strength of the thread of religion through the fabric of America. Oh, and this is why this issue you're bringing up on the chaplain is so important. I think sometimes my party doesn't quite understand the beauty and the closeness that needs to have happen between those of faith, established faith, and our government. They can work hand in hand to do so good. And while I understand that, we don't mandate, nor should we, this is the religion of our state, and that's, freedom of religion. But I also understand that reaching out and working with them, as I did, when we had violence summits, I often did it in a congregation and often had it led by religious leaders. There's so much they bring to the table for our nation.
Well, I appreciate you checking that out, Joe. And my last question that I wanted to ask you is, how are your feet holding up with your walk?
They're actually doing pretty well. What I found is the nice, comfortable sneakers I had they got a little tight on the top. It must be a little bunion growing there or something. And so I've ended up walking in a heavier pair of larger boots that just make my feet be extraordinarily comfortable. Look, I really appreciate your bringing this up. Hey, Greg, you probably remember the book, To Kill a Mockingbird. And in it,
Yes.
that young, precocious Girl Scout says those great words, you can never know a man until you stand in his shoes and walk around in them. I intend to come and understand and know Pennsylvanians of all different walks of life, and then I want to be held accountable for serving them well. Thank you very much for bringing it up.
Well, thank you, Joe, and it's always a pleasure to talk to you. Appreciated the last time when you ran for political office, and we'll be watching you very closely as you make another run for U.S. Senate. All the best to you. Thank you for taking time to talk to us today. Safe travels on the rest of the journey.
Thank you, Greg, and I will look up that chaplain right after I hang up.
Very good. Okay, have a good day, Joe. Bye-bye.